Welcome to Week in Review. I'm Larry Tomczak, and I really count it an honor and privilege to be able to serve you. I hope you'll find this very informative, insightful, and something that you can share with others. Be an informed influencer, because today we are awash in this nation in corruption, falsehoods, and we've got to take a clear stand for the truth. You know, I want to deal with a subject today that is serious, and it's in a week in review because of all that's going on. I want to give you seven specific reasons for the rising violent crime and murders in this country. It's serious. This is not just something cyclical or, well, I don't like to get into these things. I don't pay attention to this kind of stuff or it'll all blow over. No, we're facing something that is appalling and alarming, and it affects you and your family and your future. You know, maybe you've seen this little sign here, and it's humorous, but it says, you know, this home is guarded by shotgun 3 nights per week. You guess which 3? Well, it's a sign of the time, and it's a humorous thing, but today with security systems going off the charts and people buying guns, you know, this is something called the judge. You don't mess around with this, baby, I'll tell you this. And you know, gun sales are also going through the roof. Maybe you've seen some of these things right now. And also the exodus from major cities, people are saying, I'm getting out because the rising crime. But what's behind it? Why is there so much violent crime? And why are so many people being shot? Do you know 340 police in the past year have been shot? That doesn't mean they died, but shot. Do you know that murder in 2020, now we don't have for this previous year yet the stats, but I tell you this, murders have gone up 30% in 1 year. That is stunning stats and data, and it's scary. And recently, maybe you saw this evangelist in Montgomery, Alabama. Here he's there with his son and his wife, and they're in this neighborhood. And as he's sharing the gospel, a guy comes out and just shoots him in cold blood, kills him. Thank God they caught the guy. But you see these kind of things, and we become desensitized to it, but it's happening all around us today. And we need to say, all right, what's behind it? Let me give you the 7 reasons as best as I am able to compile this. This is from a biblical worldview. Now, the first reason is this. I believe the first reason is because, why? We have departed from traditional values. We've departed from traditional values. In other words, we've gone apart from God's standards. If you read Romans chapter 1, you can see when people don't honor God and they don't value the truth, and it says truth 2 times, what happens is a downward spiral in a culture. And it says there will be not just sexual perversion, but murders. People are unmerciful. They're inventing ways of doing evil. They're callous. I mean, you go on down the line, and that's a description of our culture today. We also see today a lack of respect for what? Government and authority. Now, you need to understand, what is the purpose of government and governing authorities? Well, in Romans 13, it gives the 3 reasons. 1 is to promote order. Number 2, God has government to do what? To promote justice. And then number 3, to punish evil. Let me read to you what Romans 13 says. This is important. Here's what it says. It says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Leaders, rulers are not a terror to good work. No, but to what? But to evil works. Do you wish to have no fear of the authorities? Then do what's good, and you will have praise from him, for he is the servant of God for your good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword, it could be modern weaponry, in vain, for he is the servant of God as avenger to execute wrath upon him who practices evil. So it is necessary to be in subordination, not only because of wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For this reason, you are to pay taxes, and it says this, for they are God's servants, devoting themselves to this very thing. Render to all what is due them, taxes to whom taxes are due, and respect to whom respect is due, fear to whom fear is due, and honor to whom honor is due. Now that's God's biblical way, and that's the biblical worldview. But we have people today that don't in any way comply with this, and they want to go their merry way. And so they reject a traditional approach and biblical values, and they rebel against the authorities. They say lawlessness that's what we follow. No, lawlessness is danger. And Jesus said in the last days, because lawlessness increases, the love of many will grow cold. So the first reason today we see rising crime in these stats, and it's so dangerous, is because number one is a departure from traditional values. Number two, I would submit to you, is this: rampant corruption and violence. Rampant corruption and violence. You know, if you go to Genesis chapter 6, you can see a time that Jesus spoke about. Jesus said, as it was in the time of Noah, so will it be in the time of the Son of Man's return. And what was going on there? Well, we see in chapter 6, there was some really weird kind of mysterious sexual immorality, but twice it says violence. And then it says twice, corruption. And God was grieved, and the imaginations of men's hearts were only evil continually. Well, we're living in that kind of time today. People have rebelled against God, and you can see that in terms of a lack of respect for the sanctity of human life. Abortion. 63 million babies now in America have been murdered. That's a lack of respect for life. And so what we've seen is violence on the rise and violent crime. And why? Because basically what we're seeing here is a departure and a turning away from God, and also a cultivation of violence and corruption in our culture. Number three reason I see this is because of this. With the George Floyd tragedy, all of a sudden, and that was a tragedy, but what took place is that triggered something in America, and I'd say it triggered something of really a flood tide of violence and murder and just unbelievable lawlessness. When that took place, you can recall, primarily in Democrat-run cities, there was a turning of a deaf ear. Crime was not prosecuted. People were burning and looting and killing and shooting, and all what was going on, it was going on all over the country. And we had, Pelosi was telling us, well, people got to, get rid of their steam, and, it's a summer of love. $80 billion worth of damage that took place, neighborhoods and businesses and all that took place. And that sent a message when people were not prosecuted. Well, there were some that were arrested, just a small number, but then what happened? They were let go. And as a result, a message was sent. Criminals, you can get away with stuff. And they pulled up and said, let's get going. That's a third reason. A fourth reason is this. I would say this, that we see exploding drug culture in this country. We have people that say, this is harmless. This is innocent. It's legalize marijuana, fentanyl. It's not harmful. Let's get on with the real serious stuff. And so let's legalize drugs. Well, the exploding drug culture is something that's tied in also with violence, because the drug industry, they are in charge. They work with the gangs. Gangs have to have weaponry. They have to have their guns to protect their turfs. And so we see killings. It's an amazing thing, but when we talk about crime, do you know that even though we have 30% more murders in a year back, you know what we have? We have 57% among blacks shooting blacks. And it's a tragedy, and they represent 13% of the population. You say, what's going on? Why don't we hear this in the media? Well, because it doesn't fit the narrative. What is that narrative? Well, it's that, this is a racist system, and we have police that are corrupt, and they're shooting blacks left and right, and people of color. Well, as a result, neighborhoods with minorities and people of color suffer. And so today we have gangs and we have drugs, and that also exacerbates the situation. Next, we have this, chaos on the border. The border is porous. And Mr. Biden, he's never even used the term. He never even talks about fentanyl. And that's coming through right now into our culture today. Do you know all you need is 2 milligrams of fentanyl and it'll kill somebody? And do you know among 18 to 45-year-olds right now, There are more that have died in the past year from fentanyl than what? COVID, cancer, car accidents. It is epidemic. And so what we see is an open border, and Mr. Biden says nothing about this. Over 2 million people have surged in, and the drugs are coming into the cities. And as a result of it, guns and shootings and gangs, it's dangerous, it's alarming, and it's really something that's dangerous that has to be addressed. What's another reason? Well, I'd say this. I thought of this one. It's the progressive so-called district attorneys in cities. These people that are put into office, and they're progressive with their progressive policies, no bail, and the criminals are victims, and let's not prosecute. And you can see it. Do you know in New York right now, they're passing policies. This is shocking, that if somebody goes in with a gun, robs a store, and as long as it's under $1,000, you know what? It's a misdemeanor. Threatening somebody's life. What is that? That's progressive policies, radical policies that are put forth by these district attorneys. You can see it also in LA. People can rob, they can literally up to $1,000, and it'll be registered, what? Like a parking ticket. All that it is a misdemeanor. Folks, there was a time when in even New York, Giuliani and Mayor Koch, man, they established safe zones. People were tough on crime, and people, when they committed a crime, they were punished. Today, let them out, demonize the police. Criminal justice system has to be reformed. Let's defund. Let's give just social programs, educate people. Let's ignore this criminal activity. And as a result, we see violent crime and killings on the increase. Let me give you one more reason that I would say, and maybe you could come up with others, but I'd say number 7 is this, is progressive policies that are being promoted. Progressive, radical, leftist policies that are being promoted. It is dangerous in this country. And these district attorneys, they will not prosecute. They don't. And they're proud of it. And they are believing, along with Black Lives Matter, who are Marxists, and you need to realize that the system is racist. This is systemic racism, and it all has to be torn down and replaced. That's what they believe, and that's what they promote. They're activists, and they're pushing it everywhere. You say, well, Larry, this sounds discouraging. What are we supposed to do? Let me give you my solutions. Number 1 is we need to pray. The fervent, effectual prayer of a righteous man avails much. We need to really pray for God's intervention at this time, and for God to raise up godly, righteous leaders and remove the ungodly. So we pray. Number 2, we need to proclaim the truth. This video, and as you listen to it, pass it along, post it, tell others. You need to help educate, not just your children, but people that you interact with. Engage with them and use some of these stats and some of the material you're hearing. Number 3, we need to participate in the electoral process and remove mayors, governors, district attorneys that embrace all kinds of socialist ideas. These kind of leftist policies, progressive policies, will destroy our nation. So we stand strong. And then I would say this, protect. You know, when Jesus sent out the disciples, he told them to keep a sword. And you need to be vigilant, and you need to protect your family, and you need to be not scared, but you need to be vigilant and on guard. The Bible says this, when the enemy comes in, the Spirit of the Lord will raise up a standard. Yes, we have alarming stats, but we also have an army, the army of God, that's rising up. And we're going to see replacement, we're going to see change, and we're going to see another great awakening that's going to transform this country for the glory of God.